A recent study funded
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from our studio in Woodland Hills. I'm excited to be here with you this morning. We were with you live on Saturday. I hope that you guys had a chance to watch that. If not, go back and look and see. Some of our red carpet things are really crazy, and I'm so grateful that you guys put up with us, because the thing about doing it live without having multiple cameras and multiple people to switch to is that there's really no place to hide. We had such a good time, though, at the first annual All Ghouls Gala that benefited Autism Care Today. And we had some wonderful celebrities and some fabulous press. I encourage you to check out, there are pictures of the event. You can put first annual All Ghouls Gala on things like Getty Images or Shutterstock and take a look at some of the amazing stars and celebrities that we had that came out. Good morning, Susie B. I was so proud of how diverse our red carpet was. If you watch any shows and you love watching folks who are considered diverse actors that maybe have other things going on, first I want to say that these are actors in their own right. Talented professionals who've been working on multiple shows and multiple projects, but also, perhaps they also would identify as having Down syndrome, or perhaps they would identify as being neurodiverse or being on the spectrum. But we had so many diverse actors on that red carpet on Saturday night. It just really made me so proud. Renee and Elvira, good morning. And especially, we did have some huge stars as well that Joe Mantegna and Gary Cole, amazing, amazing dads, were there on the red carpet along with Fred Melamed. And Fred's somebody that, that name you might go, okay, I remember that name, but I can't picture. And then, of course, if you see a picture of Fred, you'll be like, oh, he's been in everything that you've ever watched, including WandaVision. So it was just such a thrill. We had such a good time. And at some place, we might even show you a picture of Dr. Grampiche, who was dressed as David Bowie, as Iggy Pop. I walked by her 3 times and didn't recognize her. I was like, has anybody seen Doreen? I'm looking for Doreen. And then I realized there she was. And of course, I was a nun. Because I've always wanted to be a nun, so why not? I'm not Catholic, but I always wanted to be a nun. So it's a problem. You have to take it out on Halloween, right? It was a really great event, and we're so grateful for the people who volunteered and the people who came and the people who participated and the people who donated, because that's really what it was a fundraiser so that there can be more grants for people who are in need, because let's face it, the need is pervasive, right? But I'm thrilled to be here. I'm still getting my voice back because there was a lot going on that night. But I'm excited to be here. We're live right now, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, a dozen other sites. Traven's going to show you in just a second. We're going to be talking today about our toolkit for surviving after a holiday, because we've given you a lot of prep for how to get ready for the holiday, how to deal with the sensory issues beforehand so that you set yourself up for success. But now today, even though most of you are going to be celebrating, by the way, happy Halloween. I've got my skull necklace on. We'll have it light up here in a minute. Most of you are you've still got the majority of your holiday to celebrate this afternoon and this evening. I want to put some things in your back pocket for tomorrow and the day after, and how to survive this holiday and other holidays. Good morning, Anita from India. So thrilled that you're here. Because, whenever we're talking about behavior, we talk about the fact that, oh, lovely, Traven's starting to show you where you can watch the show. But we talk about that 3-term contingency, which is that whenever we're having any kind of behavior, a good behavior, a challenging behavior, behavior we want to see more of, or behavior we don't want to see more of, something happens, which is the antecedent, and then the behavior happens as a result of the thing that happened, and then we have the consequence, right? And if we want to change the behavior, so often we think, oh, well, we need to change the behavior. It's very hard to change behavior, and you don't have a whole lot of control over the individual or the behavior, but you can there are ways that you can change behavior is by changing what happens beforehand. Smacking my own bobblehead here. You change what happens beforehand, so maybe the behavior doesn't need to happen if it's a challenging behavior, or you change the behavior beforehand so a behavior is more likely to happen, or you change the consequence of it so that somebody doesn't get a reward for it, or they do get a reward for it, right? And that when you change those things, actually you can steer behavior in lots of directions that you want to see more of it. If you want a kiddo who you want them to be able to self-regulate, then we need to do some things beforehand to help them to self-regulate, and we need to congratulate them when they do self-regulate, right? So that's how you manipulate those things. All Hallows Eve today. Wonderful, yes. So today we've talked before about some of the antecedent strategies that we had about letting your child wear bits and pieces of the costume to get them used to it, practicing in different, in your house in different doors so that they could trick or treat, and practicing with the neighbors and so on and so forth, taking the pictures. The one thing I want to remind you is, like, take pictures before. If you had the opportunity this morning before your child went off to school and you took pictures, great, and you're going to try to take pictures later on. But if you really want to make it so that you don't care in the moment, if the picture turns out or whatever, take the picture days before, right? But now we're in it. Today we're in it. So today I'm going to pack your bag full of some of the things that you can consider for tonight and tomorrow when you have to deal with the aftermath of everything, okay? So we're just gonna launch right into this. This is the After Holiday Survival Kit, and this is the Halloween edition, but we're really gonna try to put things in your backpack that are for all the holidays, right? That we all have good intentions, and we try to do that antecedent thing, and then we get to the holiday, and part of the fun of the holiday is that anything can happen, and your good intentions go out the window, right? And suddenly you just have to go with the flow, right? And I think that that's part of the fun of holidays, when you can go with the flow and have things be different. But for some of us, that's hard, because we have people that we love in our lives that go with the flow. It means a whole lot of things that can be really overwhelming to them. And let's not kid ourselves, it can be really overwhelming to us. I don't want to make it sound like sensory issues are only people who are on the autism spectrum. That's not it. That's not the truth. We all have sensory issues. We can all get to sensory overload. We can all get to the point where it's like, this isn't fun anymore, right? So we're going to talk about when it gets to that point and what do you do to reel it back in and get things back on schedule. That's what we're talking about. So one of the things that I think is really vital is that we start with clear rules. And part of the problem with holidays is that we may have already set up clear rules in our life about what we do, what is it, what's allowed, when is it allowed, how much is allowed, and where is it allowed, right? And we have that set up in our family. Then the holiday comes and we send a message to our kids that, now all the rules are out the window, and, because we've told you don't talk to strangers, and now you're going to walk up to total strangers, bang on their door, yell trick or treat, and they're going to give you a treat. It's very hard for kids to understand that the rules are different. But our kids tend to be very rule-oriented, and they want to know what the rules are. I think that this is them being very savvy. I don't know if you've ever been, the first time that I ever went in the 80s to a Ponderosa steakhouse, I was flummoxed. I was used to going into a place where, you go into McDonald's and you walk up to the counter and you order. That seemed clear to me. Or you go into a restaurant and you wait for somebody to seat you, or if it's a certain kind of restaurant, you seat yourself and the waiter comes up to you, right? And then I went into a Ponderosa steakhouse and it was like, I don't know what the rules are. There was, you couldn't just go get a table. You weren't allowed to go get a table. There's like this cattle chute, and you go up and they're like, well, did you pick what you wanted? No, the menu's back there. I didn't know. And I didn't want the steak, and so I didn't know how to order the salad bar. And I said to somebody, can somebody just tell me where the rules are posted? Because I was having anxiety because I'm like, I don't understand what happens here. Now they have lots of restaurants like that, and I know that, but I didn't know that at the time. And I think that a lot of people, we had people at the party the other night, they're like, okay, what are the rules? Like, what's happening? Where am I allowed to go? What am I allowed to do? So on and so forth. People like rules. It's not just people on the spectrum. But how nice is it that folks on the spectrum want to know, like, what's the expectation here? What are the rules? And when they know what the rules are, sometimes they're like, wait a second, rule being broken here. I'm not sure I'm okay with that, right? So we need to be clear with them that today is Halloween. That means that the rules around Halloween are that you're allowed to dress up in a costume. You're allowed to talk to strangers if you're with mom or dad. Whatever your rules are. You can even make a little chart for them to say, here's what the rules are, right? But then after the holidays, we need to go back to either the old rules or new rules that aren't for Halloween, but aren't the old rules, right? It's kind of like COVID. Like, are we doing masks? Are we not doing masks? Your kids have gotten a little bit more flexible with this because they've had to. So it's a great opportunity to talk with them about, okay, Halloween is over, and whether you put them to bed that night and don't go over or the next morning, I really want you to, and you can make a chart, a representation, but have clear rules for them. You can make it visual for them, and the rules should reflect your values and what you can take. A lot of people go, oh, we let our kids stay up really late on Halloween. Okay. For a lot of people, because it's on a Monday, they're going to go to school in the morning, and school is going to expect them to be productive. Yeah, it's going to be not fun. I've been a teacher on the day after Halloween before. It's super not fun. But if they're smart, they'll know how to handle it. But you're going to decide for yourself what time they go to bed on Halloween. But the next morning, tomorrow morning, I really want to encourage you to talk about how much candy is allowed. When are you allowed to have candy? Like, I think, for some parents, they're going to say, okay, I'm just making this up. You're allowed to have 2 pieces of candy a day, and you can't have them until your homework, after school, and your homework is done. And then the kids go, okay, I know what's allowed, I know when it's allowed, I know how much is allowed, and I know I'm having it at home because it's after I'm done with my homework. So there's a clear expectation. And I'm not doing that when they get home. I'm telling them that in the morning, or even possibly the night before. Okay, we're not going to eat all the candy all at one time, 2 pieces a day. For other people, they're going to make other rules and say, okay, you're allowed to have 2 pieces in your school box lunch, that you can have it at lunch, but that's it. And then you come home and you can have a piece after dinner, whatever. But I think if you don't set clear rules, then your kiddo is going to have a hard time because it feels like, we're doing this, we're doing that, I don't know when can I have candy again. And you might be like in my household where we just were like, there's no candy. And in our household, and my son from the time he was 3 understood he didn't know what candy was. So it was much easier because I did it earlier. Some of your kids already know what candy is, and if you say to them you're not getting candy, they're going to cry, right? I'm not a proponent of that. But I am not a proponent of saying, here's all the candy, have it and have at it. And have it when you want it, how much you want it, because you're going to pay and so will they. Their bodies can't handle it. They're going to get dysregulated. They're not going to understand what's happening, and you're going to be sorry that you did that. It's just unconscionable to just let them go crazy on the sugar and the artificial colors and the artificial flavors. Now, when I was a kid, I'm old, I'm super old, but when I was a kid, we would go trick-or-treating, we'd come home with our bags, and the very first thing that our parents would do is go through and see what was wrapped and what wasn't wrapped. And we understood that this was the rule. You don't eat a single piece of candy until mom and dad have gone through it to see what's safe. Because back in my day, people were still handing out apples, but people were putting razor blades in apples, and kids were getting hurt. It's terrible to think of, but that was the reality. And so, parents were told on the news, you have to separate what's wrapped candy and what isn't. No, you don't take anything that wasn't manufactured and wrapped. And people have different interpretations of what they consider safe. So, feel free to start whatever tradition is appropriate for you and your family, but still separate out the candy. This is allowed, this isn't allowed, right? And of the what's allowed, I would encourage you, people are going to scream and yell, but your children go to bed. Tonight, your children are going to go to bed. And I would encourage you to take all the Halloween candy, and you've gone through it in front of them, but now take it and greatly diminish it so that they're not seeing this abundanza of candy and stressing about when can I eat it, how much can I have. Like, make it easier for them. I'm not saying, in my case, we had the Lego fairy come, that we said to our son, that stuff is called candy, and he didn't know what that meant. And we said, but the Lego fairy loves candy, and so he's going to come in the night, and the more you have of it on the table, the bigger the Lego he's going to give you, right? And so there would always be a Lego on the table, and we just didn't deal with the candy. I understand that is not everybody's path, but I didn't have a kid who was strung out on the sugar for days. He still had sensory issues to come down off of, and that was our choice. I'm not telling you that has to be your choice. And especially if you have kiddos who love sugar and love candy, I want to tell you, don't do that to them. It's mean. Don't be mean to your kids. But it's also mean to just let them glut on it, because they will get dysregulated, and that is not kind either. So when they go to bed, you can take, a portion of it, and if, I'm not about being wasteful. Dentists' offices where I live collect candy in the days afterward, and they ship it to overseas troops as a treat for them. So that's a really good thing you can do. Or maybe you take it to the office, or you donate it someplace where people can use it. But if you have to, if it's what's best for your child, throw that stuff away. Because having so much of it, not so good, right? But tell them what the rules are so that they know, that they have an expectation. It's sort of like what Dr. Grampiche says about if you had to go to work and you never knew when you were going to get paid or when you were going to get home, it would be stressful. You'd be instead of focusing on your work, you'd be asking, when can I have lunch? When do I get home? When can I get paid, right? Our kids are the same way. So tell them what's allowed, when it's allowed, how much is allowed, and where it's allowed. Be very clear about it. It doesn't have to be a lecture. You can just say, okay, so you're going to get to have 2 pieces of candy tomorrow. You can even say to them, which 2 pieces do you want to set aside that are your favorite that you want to have tomorrow? And you can have that after the homework or after dinner, whatever you think is appropriate. That part is up to you guys, but be clear about the rules. And if your kiddos, if their receptive language is not as strong as what you would like it to be to understand this, make a little chart and say 2 pieces of candy and put 2 and show 2 pieces of candy and have a clock, make it a visual schedule for it, right? So that they can actually access it and understand it. Okay, next is that we want to sharpen our listening skills on the day after. Every kiddo is different, and what they react to is different. So this is not a one-size-fits-all. But what is one-size-fits-all is that we need to pause for a second and listen to them and listen to their little bodies. And you can see, I keep quoting, there was a woman that was at that conference that I was at 2 weeks ago, and she said, I'm a big believer in we vote with our hands and our feet. That when a child is pushing away from something, that's them voting. That's them saying, I don't want that, right? Or when they're grabbing at something, that's another vote, right? And there's all the subtlety of everything in between, right? But you probably know your child more than anybody if you're focused and listening. And sometimes we get caught up in our day and it's like, well, we got to get to school. I'm going to tell you, and I'm a former school teacher, right? Nobody expects all of the children to be on time tomorrow. Nobody does. And I know sometimes it's like, well, I have to have them on time so that I can get to my job on time. But, you're going to have to deal with what you have to deal with tomorrow. So try to listen to them to see what's going on, because they're going to have different reactions to Like it might be that they're just discombobulated because the rules got changed. It might be that the sugar's going to throw them off, or the artificial colors, or the flavors. They might have a tummy ache. They might be super tired. They might be scared, right? So listen to them and see, ask yourself the question. It's kind of like a fun game that you can play. Listen to what their body is doing, listening to the things that they're telling you, both vocally and non-verbally, what they're telling you. And here are just some possible, when you're not sure, remember when you had a baby and the baby would cry and you're like, I don't know what he needs. I don't know what the problem is, right? But you had your sort of go-to list of things that you would do because you couldn't say what's going on right now. So what did we do? We jiggled, we burped, we walked, we looked at them to see if they were hot or cold, and we would take clothes off or put clothes on, right? We would, say they must be hungry. We would give them something to drink. Those are all kind of the same sorts of things that we all sort of need. If you're feeling discombobulated and out of control, what are the things that you do for yourself? And I put a preliminary list of things here that we, take a break. The other day, it was so overwhelming to me what was happening for the party prep. And one of the people that was working on the party, that was really working on the party, doing the lion's share of stuff, said, I really need a coffee, but I don't want to stop and go get one. And I said, oh, let me go get you a coffee. And she said, no, you're busy too. And I said, yes, but I need a break. I need to walk away for a minute. So I walked across the street to get her a coffee because I needed to clear my head for a moment to come back and focus on the thing that was happening next. So a break, it doesn't have to be a big, long thing, right? And we want to be careful with breaks that they don't turn into a big, long thing, but everybody can use a break from time to time. We saw people at the party that like